he stopped me. He said, you do know that I've never coached an Olympic champion before? I went, yeah, good point. He says, you've never been one, I've never coached one. So we're on it together. Paying attention to the people that you lead and really being tuned in, having your antennae on receive is really hard because not everybody's like you, and you get your confirmation bias, and you've got to really understand your biases and understand where the gems and the gold can be coming from anywhere. I got nailed in the press as well because the press were thinking I should have won it, and so the press gave me
Don't get me started on that one.
Moorhouse is a failure was the title.
Really?
Adrian Moorhouse should do himself and the sport of swimming a favour and retire.
Hi, and welcome back to the Leadership Enigma. You might be listening to us or you might be watching us. Welcome. Now we have over 350 videos on our YouTube channel. Please check that out, like and subscribe. You'll find us on all the various podcast platforms, but let's get back into this episode. I'm very, very excited for this one, where we continue to explore high performance. So, what's harder, winning an Olympic gold medal or actually leading a team? Well, my next guest, Adrian Moorhouse, has done both. So you're going to have to join me just after this break to find out the answer to this question and many more. Who knows where this episode is going? I'll see you in a moment. Hi, I'm Adam Pacifico, and welcome to the Leadership Enigma, a world-ranked, award-winning podcast that's insatiably curious as regards what leaders do, how they do it, and importantly, why. We'll delve into the human doing, but even deeper into the human being and the power of human-centered leadership to drive sustainable change. So whether you're an entrepreneur, business owner, corporate executive, each week we speak to global experts, academics, rising stars, ambitious upstarts and disruptors, as together we will discover that success leaves clues. Adrian, it's a huge warm welcome to the Leadership Enigma. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, nice day.
Firstly, huge thanks for coming into the studio. What do you
Pleasure.
think? I keep asking people.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. I love the colours. The colours suit your eyes.
There's definitely a blue thing going on, isn't it? No one said that the colour suits my eyes. I think we'll go from that. Listen, you and I have actually known each other or certainly connected over the last few years, actually.
Yeah, it's quite a while.
But now was a great time for you to come into the studio and for us to talk about really your thoughts and views and reflections on being a high-performing individual, and also now being a leader of a lot of people, and now you're working as a consultant where you're investing time into helping others understand how they lead. So in some ways, you've gone through the entire gambit. But I gave a very, very brief intro, and many people will know who you are. My wife being one of them, she went, "Oh, I remember Adrian Moorhouse."
It dates us all, right?
Well, to a degree, it does, but we won't go into just how many years we've been around. But Adrian, tell us a little bit about your swimming background for anyone who doesn't know.
So for anybody who doesn't know, I competed for Great Britain, Team GB, in the 1984, 88 and 92 Olympics. I did 3 Olympic Games, and I competed until I was 28 and I retired. And during that period, I got a gold medal at the Olympics, the middle one. I broke the world record 6 times, and I was world number 1 for 6 years.
Now, you've said that very, very quickly. Let's just pause. Hang on. Yeah, I love that. You've probably said, I've said this before so many times. So, gold medal in the 100 metres breaststroke.
In 1988.
1988 in South Korea.
Yeah.
And then you broke the world record. How many times?
6 times.
Were those all your world records?
They were after a while. The first time
I was going to say, at what point did you beat yourself?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because, beating your own personal best.
Yeah.
It's okay, but when it's the world record, it's a bit of different gravy. But then, if you want to keep on improving, if you want to keep at the top, if you're going to carry on doing Olympic Games, then you've got to improve, right? So if you hold the world record, then you've got to keep on improving.
So you dominated British swimming for many, many years. But how did you first get into swimming? I always want to know how people get into something which they then become incredibly good at.
I think like anybody else, the Learn to Swim program is massive in Britain because we're a waterway, canals, and I lived around lots of canals and a river. And so not to drowning was kind of the way I got into it.
How did you get into swimming? Not to drown. I love that.
But I think this is a really fascinating thing about people when they tell me they can or can't do something or something's hard. It's like, well, yeah, but there was a moment where I couldn't swim, and then I became the Olympic champion. So you've got to learn to swim first. So So really, I got into it because the teacher that taught me to swim was also a swimming coach. Now they're different qualifications actually. So teaching somebody to swim and then coaching somebody and so she had a swimming club and said, look, now you can swim. Do you want to come and do some racing? Do you want to learn how to do butterfly, for instance? And I was, oh yeah, that sounds exciting. I'm 8 years old at this point.
I'm going to say,
it's exciting.
At what point would my first gold medal come in?
Nine. I was Airedale and Wharfdale 1 length backstroke.
Oh wow!
That's where my first gold medal.
Okay, it's not bad, is it?
It was.
I was rubbish at that. I think I got my 25-meter badge and then my 50-meter badge. And do you remember that life-saving one with pajamas in the pool?
Yeah. But I've sewed them on. I had them on my trunks.
Was that a thing for you?
Yeah,
before elite
things
sport?
Yeah, of course it was.
Okay,
I was a kid.
You didn't just bypass.
No, I was a kid that wanted to do all that stuff, and
I love all that.
Yeah, so really. But then it's really interesting because I am fascinated by it. At what point does that sort of hobby, that childhood sport thing, turn into your profession?
That's my next question.
Yeah, was it?
At what point did you think, or did someone say, well, you're rather good at this? I think.
Yeah, it was about 14, 15. So when I was 14, 15, I moved from the Bradford swimming club that I was in to the Leeds swimming club, and Leeds had put a couple of people on the Olympics, and the coach was an Olympic coach, and so I think, and he had a 50-meter Olympic pool, which looked massive compared to 25-meter pool I was swimming in. And it was like, so that my training program stepped up, everything stepped up at that point, and I'd never entered the national championships, like an age group.
Yes.
I'd only entered the county. So my best result was a silver at the Yorkshire County Championships. And then I got
to be forgotten, can we just say, right?
No, and actually, it's another little apocryphal story that I talk about my coach, when I could never beat this kid that won. So I used to come second in everything to this one boy. Yeah. This one boy, he came second all the time. I went to my coach, I said, I'm never going to beat him. He said, just outlast him. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, he might not make it to 16, 17. If he's not in the race, you beat him. It's genius.
It's not bad advice,
and
really,
the kid quit at the age of 16.
Oh, really?
So anyway.
Do you think he looks back and says, I used to beat him all the time?
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he's going around telling people that story. And it's true. But you've got to be in it to win.
That's a sliding doors moment.
It's a sliding door. Well, I don't know what caused him to retire. But then, so at the age of 15, I got to Leeds, and my coach entered me in the national championships.
Yeah.
And I trained hard, and I trained for about 6 months after I joined Leeds, and I won the national championship. So I actually won the nationals before I actually won the Yorkshire championships. It was really weird. I came second in Yorkshire. Then 6 months later, I won the nationals. And then I won the Yorkshire.
So at what point did it become really quite serious?
Work.
Work, where you are in the pool at 5 a.m. in the morning and
15.
Wow,
15,
really?
And that really was a challenge. Having had children that have just gone through GCSEs, A levels, and we're in the same phase. Yeah. I had a choice because I was in that phase of having to study for O levels at a time.
Yes.
And I got picked for the British Championships, the World Championship, World Schools Championships.
Yeah.
And so I failed a few of my O levels and won the World Championships. The World Schools Championship. But
this is difficult. If you are elite at
this is really difficult.
Something has to give. I've had sat in your seat, Miles Lewis Davis. Miles Skelly.
Yes.
His mum was here, and obviously he was now playing for Arsenal in England. Yeah. And there's that whole debate of education, elite sport.
It's nuts.
And so many parents are having to make that decision, just as you're making a decision now about yours.
Well,
how difficult was that for mum and dad? For
really hard. It was
what's best.
Some of my best parenting modelling came from my parents. I love the way my parents were. I mean, they both passed away sadly recently.
Right, I'm sorry.
But no, it happens, doesn't it? It's going to happen to us. But no, when it was actually an A-level story. So I did okay at O-levels, went through to A-levels. But at this point, I'm swimming every weekend. I'm going to some like Germany, France, Italy to race in some competition for the weekend. So I was in school. I used to leave school Thursday morning and get back Monday night. So I'd studied Tuesday, Wednesday pretty much. And then my parents went to the A-level after we'd done mock A-levels and went to see the teachers on Parents' Evening.
Yes.
And they came back from Parents' Evening and said to me, I remember Dad sitting in front of me, said, how do you think that went? I said, well, I'm pretty sure I know how it went. He said, I was talking to the maths teacher, and he said, will Adrian pass his A-level maths? And the maths teacher said, he hasn't got a hope in hell. He said, however, he's visited more countries than I ever have in my life. Yeah. And he's probably going to be more successful than I will be. So who am I to tell him to pass A-level maths?
Wow.
And my dad looked at me and he said, so, we've got a choice here. Because my dad was sort of self-made, left school at 14, and they'd worked really hard to get us into this school and the paying fees. And it was, he said, look, we've worked really hard to get you in this opportunity.
Yes.
And I'm hearing you're about to fail your A-levels. can you just talk me through this? He said, but I was British number one at the time. So I was 18. I was already Britain's number one.
So there was evidence in the system
that
and something was happening.
Yeah, and in fact, 2 months later, so I failed all my A-levels. 2 months later, I won the Commonwealth Games. So I went to the Commonwealth Games as one of the youngest winners of the Commonwealth Games on the English team in Brisbane. And so, but I remember Dad saying to me, he said, look, you can obviously fail them, but can you just reassure me and look me in the eye that you will go back to education if the swimming doesn't work out?
Wow.
I went, yes, I will.
What amazing role modelling, right?
Yeah, so he was almost like, let it go. Even though he'd made that sacrifice, I know he made huge sacrifices to get me and my brother into school. Yeah. And there I was with nothing to show for it on paper at the end of it, no A-levels.
But he let you...
And he said, follow that dream.
Go down that particular path.
Yeah, even though there's no money in swimming. I mean, at the time, 18, there was no money. There was no sponsorship. You weren't allowed to. It was amateur sport at the time.
Of course, yeah. So that then went on and on.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, another 10 years.
Well, as you say, it's still a young age. You retired from swimming at 28.
Yeah.
To many of us mere mortals, 28 is still young. But I appreciate the elite sport,
Yeah.
perhaps not. So let's think about, because one of the things that you and I have chatted before that I was fascinated in is that as a swimmer, it's a very individualistic race. And I want to just kind of get your thoughts in relation to what was the mindset you had to also build as well as the physicality to allow you to compete at the highest level and win at the highest level. And then I want to talk to you in relation to it's going to take a team because you can't do that kind of thing by yourself.
Yes.
So let's start with when you're young and impressionable and just how resilient are we? What was the mindset where did you take inspiration from to have what it took mentally to win at that level?
Okay, so it's quite an easy story in lots of ways because from the age of 12 to 20,
yes,
my first Olympics, I was driven as a self-centered individual that wanted to achieve for myself because I had a bad time at school. I was bullied at the age of 12, 13. Right. So I chose to swim because it was my escape from everything else. Okay. And so I wanted to be in control of my life because everything else was out of control, And I remember I was at a school where there was rugby and cricket and other sports, and I would never get picked for them. I was probably rubbish at them. But I was thinking somebody's now subjectively assessing us, and I'm getting my chance based on that. Right. No chance. I'm getting the crap kicked out of me at school. And then in the swimming pool, I was being successful, and I was getting picked for the team because I realised that if I won the race, they'd have to pick me. It was an objective view. And so I basically, for the age of 12, thought I'm going to control my destiny. I'm not going to have anybody else tell me what to do. And so I retreated into the pool, literally, get my head down.
That was your safe haven.
It was total safety. And also my self-esteem was linked to achievement. Now I've had years of counselling to work this out. No, years. No, seriously. But so achievement and my esteem were closely linked. So the more I achieved, the better I felt about myself. So I got all the way through to my first Olympic Games, having won the Commonwealth Games that I've referred to. Yes. When I was ranked number 3 in the world, and I got to my first Olympics. And I was ranked number 1 in the world actually because I won the US Open that year. But it didn't go well, so I came 4th. But that was the moment when I realised that I'd got close to the pinnacle. Yeah. And I was devastated, and I had a really shocking time. I was really I think I was depressed for like 4 or 5 months afterwards.
Right. How old were you at this point?
20.
Right. Still young.
It's still young, but I got nailed in the press as well because the press were thinking I should have won it, and so the press gave me a nice...
Don't get me started on that one.
Moorhouse is a failure was the title.
Really?
Adrian Moorhouse should do himself and the sport of swimming a favour and retire was the text, and I was 20. Daily Telegraph.
That's a whole different episode.
That's a different bucket.
Because you can see my blood starting to boil.
Yeah, so I was quite low because I was thinking they're probably right. I should probably quit because I've blown it. I came fourth. I wanted to win, and so that was the moment at my lowest ebb when I remember talking to my coach about the way I had approached it and realising that I needed support. Realising I couldn't do it myself. I've got so far by myself, but this being part of a team and valuing the swimming coach, understanding the duality, and understanding what the nutritionist can bring, and the psychologist and the physiologist, and so that almost the earliest sort of phasing of a support network. Because that grew during my career. A lot of it wasn't available early career, but when I got to that age of 20, 22, my coach basically put a different vision to me, which was almost like a Formula One driver. Cool. You drive in the car, you swim in the race, Adrian. but actually all around you, these people that can help you and support you if you give them of yourself, and you can get, and then you share the goal. You have a common goal. So I remember talking to a nutritionist. I said, why do you do this? She said, well, I want to be the nutritionist to Olympic gold medalist. You want to be one. I want to be the nutritionist to one. We have the same goal. I went, that's amazing. So then you
suddenly almost common purpose, alignment.
Yes. So they're bringing their best. We're all bringing our best to deliver this.
You're the arrowhead.
This
really,
performance, yeah. So that was what. So that, but there would also I'd totally underestimated was the squad system in swimming. And if anybody's got a kid that swims,
yes,
either in a club or, it is a very social sport. You're with 20, 30 other kids more than you're with your parents or your siblings.
Yeah.
And there's a real camaraderie, and you go and travel to galas and meets together. And actually, some of those closest friends are friends from those days. And then not trying to do it by myself again, and be somebody who would do it with other people and enjoy their support and give them my support was a massive turning point. So that happened to me about the age of 21.
I have some friends who've got kids who are playing pro tennis or about to break into pro tennis, and it's a devastatingly lonely sport. I want to come back to something, and I appreciate you being really candid. And you said there was a bullying element, and then there was the triumph in the pool.
Yeah.
And you sought solace in one, and obviously the difficulty with another. At what point, if at all, did what you were achieving in the pool have an impact in the rest of your school life? Or were they always two just very separate experiences? Did you start to get recognised, and hey, this kid that we're pushing around, etc. over here is rocking and rolling it and getting acclaim and opportunity? Did it start to blend?
It did, although I kept myself isolated, whether they wanted to bring me back in the fold. But then by that point, by the age of 16, 17, I'm not even at school very often. I'm the kid that smells of chlorine with wet hair when I had hair. That just comes into school every now and again.
Yeah.
And we see him. But no, you're right. I mean, at that point, 16, 17, I've got stuff in the newspapers. There was a sort of school where, if they won a trophy at the weekend, like a rugby trophy or a cricket, the rugby captain would go up to the stage in front of 1,000 all-boys school.
Wow.
And collect the trophy, and everyone would clap. And so if I won a competition like the National English Schools Championships, there'd be a trophy on the top, and I'd have to walk up the stage and collect my trophy. So I was getting that sort of accolade at school.
So you were right in the crosshairs.
I was, and I was that visibility. So they kind of left me. But at that point, I was not of interest at that point. I mean, 12, 13, 14, I was of interest because I was different or whatever. But then at the age of 14, 15, I was almost like I'd ploughed my own way, and it was working out for me.
Okay.
And I didn't have any trouble after the age of 13, 14.
Were there some early leadership lessons for you at this point when you talk about your experiences from 12,
yes,
from moving from individual to team, to understanding how in some ways you protected yourself?
Yes.
And used, where do you think back now, some lessons for you in relation to how you led, because you built a sizable business in Lane 4, which we'll come on to yourself, and had to lead that as the founder and CEO. As we look back together, what are some of the things that stand out for you, Adrian?
So my best years followed my, if you like, it was almost like a revelation.
Yeah.
And it was a revolution in my world when I understood that I was part of a team, a squad, and that at my best I would be working with and for other people.
Yes.
So there was a massive shift for me, and some biggest lessons as a leader: never discount somebody. Never. I mean, I am the ultimate champion of the underdog. Whenever somebody came to Lane 4 and said they couldn't get a job somewhere else, or somebody said, "Oh, they're a bit strange," I went,
yes,
"Let's employ them." Or I'd go, "Let's give them a go."
So what's fueling that for you?
Having been the underdog, having been the outlier, the non-included person.
Right.
Inclusion is huge.
Okay.
When we got big, Lane 4, we had an HR team. Obviously, we had an HR team, like about 6 or 7 people. And I saw some job adverts going out for Lane for consultants,
yes,
and degree required. I'm going, look, I've got to take this out because I wouldn't make it into my own company,
right,
because I failed my A-levels. So you can't. How are we sort of discounting people? I want an inclusive organisation. So I wanted people to feel like it was a place they were welcomed, and they would be for anything that was going on for them. And that if they found it difficult somewhere else, the Mavericks, I wanted to make sure we had a place that people would feel comfortable in. And because the ego, it was quite interesting actually. How do you genuinely not try and control everything, but let other people free to bring their best work? So I think as a leader, I was brilliant sorry, as leaders I was good.
You could say it.
Yeah, no, well, not brilliant. No, that's the wrong word. But I was good
This
at.
is obviously a standout point for you.
It's a standout point because what I think I was good at then was realizing I didn't have to be the expert at everything, or in fact anything, because I had a finance director, I had a marketing director, I had an IT specialist, I had a HR, and so they were like my nutritionists, psychologists, physiologists. So almost like I wanted the best of those people. So how could I help them bring their best game as a collective for the company? So in the end, I became the shepherd, the sort of the person that assembles a group of people.
What's the arrowhead again?
Yeah, and then tells a story and helps people understand the bigger picture, the bigger meaningful piece of what we're trying to do, and that everyone's important and they all contribute.
So let me come on to the subject that is, I think, a hot topic right now, and that's culture. Just how important has culture been for you in a winning team and an Olympic gold medalist, and also when you started to build Lane 4 from the ground up, and it turned into hundreds of people, and it was acquired.
Yes.
So this is a success story.
Yes.
How early did culture play a significant role for you?
Very early. So we were in year 3, I think it was, of Lane 4.
Yeah.
And there was only about, say, there's 18 of us, 20 of us. And one of the founders said, we said it's really special, and this feels special. What makes it special? And we started to articulate what we valued about being together in the company. And so start setting sort of value statements was at the heart of everything we did. And then it almost like came alongside the sort of what do we want to try and achieve, but it came first. And so when we recruited people, we recruited the values rather than the experience. One of my first clients, a guy called John Cook at Bourne Leisure. Yeah. Remember John? We were chatting about it. He said, "Well, I always hire attitude, teach procedure. You can always teach people the sort of rational stuff, but hire attitude all the time." And so that idea of having a culture that is determined by what people value, because of course people value something, they act against the value, and that's what you see in the culture. Yeah. Was fundamental. So when we were recruiting people, we used to have matching days where we try and have the person match to us and we'd match to the person. We'd have sessions where there'd be a cross-section of employees from Lane 4 in these sessions, and we'd interview people, get them to share who they were. And it was a mixture. It wasn't just consultants. The receptionist was in there, and maybe the head of IT was in there, and different people just seeing if they matched the culture. But it was not that we're going to discount you, but you might discount us, because actually you might have a feeling as an interviewee.
Two-way contract.
And I don't actually match this organisation because they do things that our values don't meet. So that was really at the heart of everything we did. But obviously, I know we're going to talk about this, I come from a performance background, so we have to perform as well. So
let's talk about medals at almost all cost.
At all cost.
Or at what cost? Help me with this.
Yeah, so this came true, I think, after 2016 Olympics, after the Rio Olympics, where Team GB had pushed it a bit hard, right? So medal table, we climbed the medal table in 2012, really strong. By 2016, we're like top 3 in the world for a smallish nation.
Medal tally.
On the medal tally, number of medals, But, we got instances in rowing, in cycling, in swimming, of bullying, of coaches pushing it too far. Yeah. And then the title, I think it was the title of a report, medals at what cost? Because, it's all right, it's constantly seeking to be the best, but actually it's coming at a cost. And now your mental health, and there's been a massive shift since 2016 in elite sports to address all the inputs on performance. But I came through an era where it was very edgy. Your performance was first, and we created, the swimmers and the coach created cultural norms. Some clubs were great where I trained, some weren't so good. Some a bit too edgy. But so I've experienced the whole gamut through my years. I went to train in Australia.
And you've had this experience at school as well that you just spoke about.
Yeah, well, no, exactly.
So you've had a lived experience.
Lived experience at school and the Leeds Swimming Club, and then when I was at Cal Berkeley, so I went to University in the States, and I was at the Australian Institute of Sport. So I trained at different sort of sporting high-performance centres and felt and seen different cultures and its affect performance. I've seen it absolutely directly affect performance. So I'm going, okay, so if I want to create a business, I want to lead a business, I want us to create a business that I would want to have been in, which is almost like that ultimate combination of a really healthy culture where people feel they can thrive and bring their best self to work, but also we achieve stuff as well. We win some stuff, and we hit our goals. Because the two things,
You still got to be sustainable.
yeah,
each
absolutely,
year.
yeah, exactly. So that for me, the better thing from my sporting career was longevity. So that 6 years as world number one was more important than winning the Olympics, because you win the Olympics on a day, but
Must have been a pretty good day, though.
it was a nice day. It was a good day. It was a good day. Good day at work. But then after that, you got to do it again, or you got to. I was in it because I wanted to be a good swimmer. I wasn't in it just to win one thing.
Yeah.
And so that's the same in business. It's almost like you want this thing to sustain. So therefore, you can set your targets and achieve and grow, but actually you've got to be able to do it the year after. And
So
year after and year after.
you dominated in the 80s for a number of years as a swimmer. There's no harm in dominating as a business. And one of the critical questions on many leaders' minds at the moment, let's be honest, in a world that is utterly chaotic, Adrian, is what is that balance or blend between a culture which some might call a softer culture or a very human-centered culture, which is something I've always focused on, and the ability to really drive performance and hold people accountable.
Yeah.
So in the work that you're doing now with boards and top teams, what is that balance? What advice are you giving people on managing that?
It's a real debate, and I think there's something about there's the advice, but also a facilitated conversation amongst growing people who actually know the answers themselves, right?
Yeah.
So it is this. I think it's been driven by this thing this phrase I dislike, which is culture eats strategy for breakfast.
I knew we'd get to that one.
We're going to get to that, right? So I dislike it because I think I know where it's come from, because I've been in this business for nearly 28 years, 30 years, and my business has grown because we've brought better leadership skills. We had leaders understand human-centered leadership. We understand what it takes to bring the full human to work. Therefore, you have to adapt as a leader to create this environment where people don't feel threatened and unsafe when they come to work. They feel safe and they feel like they can do their good work. And so that I've been part of the drive to have organisations think about culture. So absolutely, culture is important to eat strategy for breakfast, but it doesn't, because if you can have a great place to come and be, but if it doesn't actually achieve anything, it won't last very long. You'll have a nice place.
Disneyland.
You go bust,
Yes.
because you've got to hit some form of target. Otherwise, you can't have the investment in. And it's interesting because in Lane 4 we had constantly was a growth agenda. So we were looking to grow. And I remember a couple of people said, "Why are we growing?" So what do you mean? So, well, why do we keep on revenue increases? Why do we want to keep on growing people and get bigger? And I said, well, I'm not a megalomaniac. I said, this is because we can. And it was a really interesting question. Why grow? And so whenever we started to talk about targets or things that were important to us in a 3-year plan or a 4-year plan, I always wanted to answer the question for everybody, why grow? And what it came down to was we have a bigger impact on our clients because we actually want to do good work. We want to help our clients. So we have a bigger impact. We'll do more meaningful work. We can reward and reinvest money. If we make money, we can reward you and we can reinvest in. And we can also expand our horizons, and we all grow as people. So, but I would never then, from that moment, I would never talk about any particular numerical number as a goal if I didn't talk about why that was important for every person in the company. So I think that what people are facing at the moment is a bit of a backlash on, as you say, human-centric culture or human-centered culture leadership is creating more inclusive, and it's so much better than it used to be. So organisations where people want to be and love to be, and yet sometimes in the conversations I'm having with senior executives is some of the numbers and they're missing them, and almost like there's an excuse. Well, we've got we care as a value, and yet you're telling me I've got to really work hard to hit that number. You don't care about me. Well, it's not quite that simple, but actually that is important. That accountability for you to deliver something. We're going to give you a great experience at work, a nurturing, developing experience, but we have this need for you to fulfil this role, achieve these goals, and that's the old psychological contract between the employer and the employee. I think we need to revisit it.
Which is two-way.
Absolutely, it's not one way. It's not
because
it's gone to one way.
The leader must solve everything for the people. There's an element of accountability, and the people must therefore deliver the results. That's fair, isn't it?
I think it's fair, but I think there's a big challenge around that, particularly with different generations coming to workforce, and I think the move has been correct. What we've been part of in the last 20 years, I think has made people's lives at work better. I'm convinced of it. And yet, what I'm seeing at the moment is people going, yeah, but with some edge, some of this performance piece, we need to bring that back in, that performance conversation. They're getting frustrated. So there's a frustration going on here about this performance thing.
You're working with CEOs, top teams and boards all the time because of everything you've learned as an individual contributor, as an elite performer, sports performer, as a leader, as an entrepreneur. What is kind of the crystallizing message that you're giving the top of the house at the moment in 2025 with all the chaos going on? What are you kind of asking that level of leadership to really focus on and take seriously? So for Hydric, we are talking about that sweet spot between culture, purpose and leadership and how that drives real competitive advantage. But what is your mantra to that top of the house at the moment? You find yourself talking about a lot or reinforcing a lot. There's probably something that's always coming to the surface.
What comes to the surface always is input versus output. Because I think a definition of output, what do you really want to achieve? But what are the input measures? So what is at a top team level, what are the inputs you need to pay attention to that will give you the outputs you want? So, and getting alignment, getting people to agree in what the outputs that will matter to them, and often their shareholders and stakeholders, and then what are the inputs they're all responsible for and will deliver, and do those things join up?
Okay.
And so that's pretty much a healthy conversation about the outputs. Do we all agree with what? Because I've had one chief exec go, winning, we got to win. I go, what does that mean to you? And you talk to the board.
You're well placed to ask that question.
Well, it's an interesting, but I said, don't you talk to the board? And the board go, well, it means X to me in my marketplace. And then somebody else in the division goes, that means nothing to me in my marketplace. Winning means this. Then you talk to somebody in HR maybe. Yeah. Winning means having a great culture.
Well, that's a target you can never hit then.
Exactly.
So again, help me with that. So as we're talking to the very top of the house with the board, I'm with the board actually tomorrow, do they really need to align on that? What is the target? What are the outputs?
I think it is, because I think if you go, because people are asking for meaningful work. Okay, so let's start with meaningful work and purpose.
Okay.
Yeah, so you've got meaningful work and purpose, and if you can nail down why your company exists and the good it is doing for society or or for the planet and for the people that work in it. What's the point? Why do you exist? Then you come off that and you go, okay, but what are we trying to achieve? Now, sometimes the goal, you know that shareholders, stakeholders, whether it's a private company or a listed company or a public company, those stakeholders will have an input on that. That conversation between what the objectives and the goals of the organisation and purpose, I think, is not often had.
Right.
Because I think the purpose is, and sometimes it's you've just done it because we know we've got to have it. But actually, those companies have really gone to a lot of effort to define what that is. Then really have a conversation about, are those goals, will they be fulfilling that purpose, and will your stakeholders be happy about that? But then you guys are responsible for delivering every single input that will achieve those goals. Are you aligned? And I think there's very little alignment between some of those top team members and the goals that they're supposed to achieve and the priorities and the responsibilities.
Okay. So that's for you the thing that was really coming to the surface in the conversation that you're having. And I might even try a little bit of that tomorrow, Adrian, and see how I get on.
Yeah, because I think people are talking about vision, purpose and values.
Yes.
And then culture, but they're not joining it all up. Because culture's an input.
Why do you think that's happening though? Why are people not joining it up?
Well, I think we're long in the tooth. I think if you've experienced a recession, and I think back to 2008, 2009.
Yeah, I remember well.
When people are under pressure, right now there's a lot of pressure on performance for people. They default to looking after the bit they're responsible for.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of more silo thinking, but almost like if I look after my bit, I will be safe, and we will be okay. But that's a misnomer. You might be safe in your bit, but you've not shared and you've not actually cross-fertilised ideas. And so what will get you out of it is a little bit more sharing. So I think that I'm seeing people close down.
I'm going to explore that a little bit more actually as I traverse various companies and regions and kind of we'll continue to have that conversation. Let me ask you a couple of questions which I think are really about this now interface between what you've done within sport and what you've learned as a leader and now consultant to leaders. What's harder, gold medal or great leader?
I can't split them. I'm really pleased and proud that I've had the chance to do both. I think the extrovert. So I'm mainly an introverted type of character. I get my energy, I recharge introverted. Yes. But as a leader, I've had to put myself out there a lot more. So I found it harder, but I think I've made a lot of effort to be more externally focused, to really understand where people were coming from. And that idea of being more other-centred, that in itself is hard for somebody who has energy. Is actually, I like to read a book, listen to music, and walk off in the sunset by myself, sort of thing. And so I think paying attention to the people that you lead and really being tuned in, having your antennae on receive, is really hard. I think it's because not everybody's like you, and you get your confirmation bias, and you've got to really understand your biases, understand where the gems and the gold can be coming from anywhere.
Yeah.
And so for me, that suspending stuff and really genuinely being the empty vessel that can go out and go, okay, what have you got to tell me, is a massive, it's not easy, but it's really, really important as a leader.
Yeah.
And I think that just simply because I'm not an extroverted character, I found that not so easy. I found it a lot easier to just control my own training, get in the water, swim hard, and do
Play
what I
to
did.
your strengths, but be mindful.
Yeah, but then I learned to get out of that when I was working with a nutritionist, a psychologist, because really they were different from me. But just okay, where's the gold in what you've got to offer me? So physically, it's harder to do the swimming thing.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I feel like I'm probably a
lot.
brick in a pond, aren't I? But I just one question off the back of that is, as an introvert, how did you deal with being thrust into the spotlight and the limelight, which was an inevitable? And we've talked about how appalling the press can be. I know that was 1980s, but how do you, as an introvert, deal with being thrust into the limelight because of what you're achieving as an individual?
I didn't like it. And yet, to some degree, it was flattering, because it's flattering to be asked to be on a show.
Yeah,
it's flattering because it's almost like you've got something to say. So you're you go, okay, I feel a bit better because somebody's asking me something. But when they turn it, and because the red tops, in my day, were pretty ruthless. I mean, crikey, I don't know how people exist in this era as a high performer.
What with social media?
Profile. Yeah, with social media.
Pressure is just.
Yeah, no. So you recognise they're after the scandal, after the story that titillates or whatever. So I really didn't like it. So I minimised it quite a lot. I had an agent who was there because we had very little money in swimming, so I had to try and get some sponsorship to get some money so that it would help me travel the world.
Yeah.
But the minute I retired, I sacked my agent the week after I retired because I don't want you to sell me for who I used to be. Right. I need to now create and be somebody who has got a future rather than talk about who I used to be.
Well, that neatly takes me on to maybe kind of what's the one mindset shift that changed everything for you, and when do you think that happened?
I know we said it. I think it happened when I was 20, when I realised that I just could not do it by myself, and I tried. I tried as hard as I could to try and do it by myself, and I got so far. I got quite high up the mountain. I came fourth in the Olympics, but I didn't get that. And it dawned on me: there's no way I was ever going to do this without other people. And every single thing that's happened to me in my life since then has proven that point.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's just a powerful message for anyone leading any size, kind of any size business. You've also talked about a number of setbacks, and you talked about when you kind of coming forth, you thought, oh, that's it, it's over. But is there what's been the biggest setback that you think you've bounced back from? Is it that
a personal one? Well, I mean, look, I was like, those people that might be listening, who've leading through 2008, 2009 was horrible. That financial crash. We had an office in Melbourne, we had an office in New Jersey at the time. We had to close both of them.
Right.
But because we were small, we could turn on a sixpence sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it was painful, and I hated it, and I really don't like letting people down. And then going through COVID, and then realising you've got the health and wellness of people and their lives and livelihoods is a burden, and yet it's a shared one. You can't take it all on. And so I think that's something for me when I realised that we were in it together. Again, when you share it and you go, we're in this together, this is what I'm faced with, what can we do about it? Yeah, and I think that was the biggest thing for me.
Well, this is the human-centred piece coming out, Adrian, which is when we first connected kind of all those years ago. I was with a client 3 days last week. We had a great, very healthy conversation about coaching or mentoring. And so kind of what shaped you most, or was it a combination? Coaches, because obviously you had elite coaches,
yes,
or mentors. And you spoke about your parents as well,
yes,
and maybe they're mentoring and role modelling. But how did coaching versus mentoring play out in your performance or your achievement?
I have quite a definite view of it in some ways, because my swimming coach was the guy that basically we worked together on what he was seeing and what I was doing. There's a feedback loop, and he wasn't a brilliant swimmer, but he was somebody who could help me, the mirror, and face off and work with my goals, and we interacted together. Whereas David Wilkie, who won a gold medal in 1976, was a hero of mine, and he was a mentor because he was somebody who'd gone there before, and every now and again we'd have a conversation, but he wasn't in my face every day. He was there just to sort of bounce things around, having followed that path. Now his style was very, asking questions and just finding where I was. So, but in work, I've had a number of people. In fact, I bumped into a chap called David Cook the other day in Marlow High Street, who was one of my first mentors in business, who was one of the earliest clients. They've come from clients usually, a couple of clients who gave us a go, believed in me. Believing in me has been quite a big feature of some of those mentors and coaches. And then basically just really shared their wisdom. But when it was appropriate, and I've got a lot, I've got more mentors in business than I have in sport, I think.
And do you find you are being asked yourself to be a coach? Are you an executive coach?
I am a qualified executive coach.
So do you find that you're being asked in a coaching capacity or in a mentor capacity, or is it because a lot of people confuse the two or get confused by the definitive difference between the two?
I think a great mentor has got a coaching style.
Yes.
I think you can't do mentoring without a coach, because otherwise you're just spray painting with somebody with your wisdom. Here, look, I've done it before. Have a bit of my wisdom. But if you go, okay, what do you need to hear from me? If I mentor quite a few people now, we're in business leaders or entrepreneurs who are trying to do their own business. But my first question is, what do you need to hear from me? What are you looking for? Not, hey, I've done it before. Let me tell you how to do it. Which is not the way to go about it. But there's definitely an element of what will be useful. Can I share some? When you hear about when you did this, okay, cool, I can talk a bit about that. Is that working for you, or is that appropriate? Or no, could you tell me a bit more about? So you're letting them lead it always as a mentor, but you're bringing, I think, more of the wisdom stuff in. Whereas the coaching piece is a lot more frequent and a lot more goal oriented for me. It's performance coaching. And I'm always intrigued because we talk about this certainly in sport, because I think it's quite clear, is that for you to have a coach, that coach is never going to be as good as you, Adrian. You were you broke 6 Olympic records, and you were the Olympic gold medalist. So it's like anyone who is lead or number one in whatever they do. Still need a coach though, don't you? Yeah, totally. I mean, I coach people in chief executives who are far better than I am at doing what they're doing. And so, but you do need, I believe you need a coach. I think it's that sounding board. It's that sort of somebody to bounce it off, see what, tell you what they saw, what they're seeing, what they're feeling, and then what's the goal, and actually working backwards and forwards. I remember telling my coach, we had a conversation after I told my coach about one of my goals was to win the Olympics. It wasn't that moment, but a few years later, as we were on the journey, we were arguing and debating some new technique or some innovation that had happened. And he stopped me. He said, you do know that I've never coached an Olympic champion before? I went, yeah, good point. He says, you've never been one, I've never coached one. So we're on it together.
I kind of like that, right?
Yeah, it was brilliant. I went, yeah, good point. So then I realised that we would learn together. He said, so I'm going to follow that path. I'm going to go find out this, and this. You carry on doing what you're doing, and we'll work on together on it. That's a lovely approach, isn't it?
Tell me, has there been any kind of ritual or habit that you had then and you still carry forward today? Because I know, again, people in elite sports sometimes a little superstitious, or they do things in a certain way. You carry anything with you? I don't actually. I figured that superstitions were going to be the downfall. I mean, I saw it happen for a few people. Did you?
Yeah, where lucky pair of goggles and they snapped or something. Do you know what I mean? So, no, I did away with that when I was about 13, 14. But things I carry with me that I quite like, I'm always on time. I mean, for me, time, that's a big issue because
you've lived your life by time, right?
The 100
millisecond.
Well, no, the 100 metres breaststroke starts at 2 p.m. If you're not there at 2 p.m., the gun goes, you can't do the race. So, and also, my coach used to open the pool at 5:45 a.m.
Yeah.
And if you weren't there, he'd lock it at 5:50 a.m. And I used to drive half an hour from Bradford to Leeds, and he'd lock the door at 5:50. And if you weren't there at 5:50, you ain't getting in the pool. I remember getting there 1 minute after.
That's a lesson in itself, isn't it?
Oh, man, I tell you, I used to lock, when I did management meetings at Lane 4, I used to lock the door. and the people came late and started banging on the door. I went, no, you're not coming in.
Oh, so in some ways, that's something you have carried forward.
Well, I have, but then I got feedback, which was, Adrian, this is very childish. I went, yeah, good point. I shouldn't be treating like children, but can you be on time? So I've got a bit of a time thing.
Okay, so you had the psychological safety to get the feedback as well.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me a little bit, talent or grit, which one's going to be the winner at the end of the day?
I've seen people waste talent. Swimmers. I've seen people with amazing talent, not living a million miles from where we are now. Actually,
Right, okay.
A guy his talent was just phenomenal, but just something had a bit of a self-sabotage thing. As he got closer to it, he just wouldn't put the work in, and he just didn't do it. But then I've also seen people with average technique like get top 3 in the world. And so for me, it's the combination. And then you get the Michael Phelps, and you get the grit and determination.
Well, then you get the outlier,
You get the outlier. But then, no, for me, it's both. For me, there's recognising you have that talent, but then you've really got to put it in.
Yeah.
And then you've got to build some form of resilience.
Has swimming changed dramatically from when you were the best in the world to now?
It's a good question, again, because I've commentated in the last 8 Olympics.
Well, then you're perfectly
placed. I should be well placed. I should be well placed for this question. I don't think that. I think technique has changed. I think sports science input.
Well, I was going to ask about
it's
that.
The input.
Right?
It's back to the inputs, the outputs.
Yeah.
Sports science input is
marginal gains.
Yeah, dramatically different.
Yeah.
So during my career, we didn't even have any nutrition in the early days. I remember going to the pool, and we swam 2 hours in the pool, and we got a nutritionist one day, never seen one before, and she says, "Do you drink water while you're in the pool?" We went, "Don't be daft, we're in a swimming pool. It's full of water."
Yeah.
She said, "No, do you rehydrate?" And I'd never heard of rehydrating before. She says, "Do you get tired by Friday?" I went, "I'm knackered by Friday." She went, "If you rehydrated, you'd be less tired by Friday." And so then she weighed me before I got in the water and weighed me after it. And when I got in the water, after I got out of the water, I'd lost 6 pounds in body weight. She says,
Wow.
that is not a fat burn. That is water loss.
Wow.
So if you're not replenishing the water, so things like that. So nutrition has moved. I mean, look, by the time my last 8 years, we had better nutrition. But the way that's moved on now, I mean, that's just one science. Biomechanics, we played with that. Strength and conditioning, we'd have a multi-gym in the basement of Leeds Pool. We'd do a few bench presses.
Hardcore.
You know what I mean? And so we were rubbish at
with
that.
Eye of the Tiger playing in the background.
So I think that's why, and I tell people this frequently, this is why Adam Peaty, who is the same event as me, so his world record was my world record way back when.
Yeah.
But I think he's about 5 or 6 seconds faster than me. And the reason, I think he's stronger, but that's one of the inputs. He's a talented individual. He's got mental strength, but we had a lot of that in our package. I think it's all about input, really. Because I don't think they train hard. I mean, more hours. Are
we back to input and output again?
Yeah, we're totally in input.
What is the
better.
output? And the inputs?
The inputs are better.
Okay.
The output is 5 seconds faster. The output is still a gold medal at the Olympics. The output is still the world record, but it's 5 seconds faster, and the inputs are significantly better.
Okay.
I could name 8 inputs that are better.
I think we're definitely. I love this whole theme of inputs and outputs. Is there a leadership myth out there that you'd love to bust?
I'm not a fence sitter, but I'm a real sort of, there is 2 sides to every story. So this idea that leaders have to go first, do you know what I mean? I don't think it's a myth, but some people come off the side of, leaders should show you how it's done, should actually be able to go first. If you lead, you're leading from the front.
Role modelling.
Yeah, whether it's leading from the front versus micromanaging doing, because the downside of leading from the front is you're doing it for them.
Yes.
You're showing them how to do it, and you're not letting them develop themselves, versus I'm in it with you. I am actually genuinely with you in it, but you can't actually do everything with everybody, because otherwise you are micromanaging. So I don't know if it's a myth, but where leadership sits in that sort of, how do you show that you are invested, and you're with people without actually micromanaging and doing stuff for them? So I don't know. I'm not busting a myth, but I think there's a
challenge.
There's a real debate, about leaders leading the way.
Because I think if you become the CEO or the founder of the business, there's always sometimes, that person can solve or resolve anything. But actually, to your earlier point, it's going to take a team, isn't it?
Yeah.
In order to, you talked about this very, very briefly, but kind of what's that number one quality that you hire for, or that when you built, and you had several hundred people working for you in Lane 4, what was that real number one or endearing quality that you were always trying to look for?
Curiosity.
Okay, tell me why.
I think it's one of the best values in the world. I don't know. I want my kids. I've got 4 kids. That's the value. When I thought about if there's anything that I wanted for my children, it's curiosity, because it leads you to everything. It leads you to understand other people's point of view. It leads you to humility, it leads you to wisdom, it leads you to a whole bunch of things. And it leads you to sort of getting feedback on yourself. And so curiosity to do something differently, to find out what somebody else is doing, what you could do. And so...
Even when you're the very best at something.
Yeah, and just not closing things down. Because the worst thing in the world is when you've got the spirit of people, want to share. They've got something to give. And you get a manager or somebody that's just saying, no, I've done it before. I'm not interested in your point of view. You're the receptionist or whatever. Well, no, tell me what you've seen.
Yeah.
What's going on? And so, curiosity for me, because that leads to an open mind to want to learn.
How easy was it for you to be curious when you were the best in the world? Again and again.
But I think that's a quality of I've been fortunate to meet a lot of people in the same position as me in the world and Olympic, and it's a common theme.
There's a humility to that as well, isn't there?
Yes,
you may be the best in class at something.
Yes, but that's irrelevant tomorrow, sort of thing. But it's nice because you can stand on that platform, but then how do you get better? Well, you've got to take feedback. So being feedback hungry and knowing that there are different ways of doing things.
We all become yesterday's headline, don't we, in some ways, I suppose. But that sounds morbid in some ways. If you could leave listeners and watchers with kind of one winning mantra, what might that be? Is there something you...
This is the sort of thing I should have thought about before.
And I deliberately haven't asked you this because I'm just curious what surfaces for you. Is there something you find yourself saying to leaders in your consultancy role now again and again in relation to... Because I find myself saying to a lot of people, listen, the future of leadership is deeply human. AI will do the rest. It's become almost a bit of a mantra for, the kind of relationships that I have in the work that I do. But is there something that you find yourself?
I think leadership has to be bold. I do think there's a bit of a cut through because for everything we talked about in terms of gathering views and to some degree that will bring consensus into the room.
Yeah.
But then at some point, you have to have the courage and the boldness to step into a place and say, thank you, that's where we're going.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. So don't get me wrong, in everything I've talked about, there is absolutely a place for decisive action and to cut through. So I think that leadership is everything we've talked about in creating the goals, strategy, working with people, but then it also requires courage and a boldness.
Let me ask you a final question, because this was a throwaway comment you gave me just before we kind of went live, was London 2012 Games. Your hardest gig, tell us why.
That was so hard. Because I'd raced, 84, 88, 92, and I commentated, I'd done quite a few, hadn't I? 96, 2000, 2004, 2008. So I was the BBC, I was commentating for the BBC. But because it was in Britain, Team GB had a bunch of old has-beens like me as ambassadors. So I was a Team GB ambassador, which meant hosting corporate clients and just doing the great and the good thing.
Yeah.
With Steve Redgrave as our captain.
Okay.
My captain. But then also I had a sponsorship with BMW, and I was a BMW ambassador and had to do some corporate gigs and stuff like that.
And a torchbearer.
And I was a torchbearer. And I had family members who were going, oh, can you get me to see this? Can you get me to see this? I was absolutely wrecked. Seriously. When at the end of that, I just wanted to sleep in a dark room for like 3 weeks.
Until you came here on the Leadership Enigma and then revealed all. This would be brilliant. It's like Adrian Moorhouse unscripted on the Leadership Enigma, which is exactly what we wanted. Adrian, has this been fun for you?
Yeah, it has. Thank you. It's great to chat to you.
It's really good to reconnect, and I think there are more things that we could and should do together. So who knows what mischief that will lead to, which is great.
Plenty.
So also, massive thank you for coming in. I really, really appreciate it. Join us again next week for more curiosity and insight with the Leadership Enigma. We'd love to hear your comments on today's show as well as suggestions for future topics and guests. Get in touch with me on LinkedIn or visit us at www.leadersenigma.com. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe on all your major podcast platforms and on our dedicated YouTube channel. Thanks again for joining the community.